Hi there everyone, it's Yen here, and today in this video I'm going to go over the Gummy Bear Dare challenge. Now this challenge is normally done at the end of the year for classrooms, but because everybody's at home, I kind of changed things around a bit so that you as a teacher can give this to your students at home, and then you as a key person, a QP, a parent, a guardian, grandparent, relative, whomever is looking after your child can also run this at home as well. Now, if you have any questions at all, please click on the link below where the Gummy Bear Dare packet lives, and you can always contact me and ask away or join our Facebook group and we can get your questions answered there. Thank you so much for watching and welcome to Gummy Bear Dare. So here's the homeschool edition of the Gummy Bear Dare. Now before I start, I just want to define key people because I'm going to mention them throughout this presentation. QPs are parents, guardians, grandparents, friends, etc. who are looking after students at home. Now QPs are not teachers. They may be working from home right now, and QPs may not know Zoom or how to do any digital tools. However, they're going to be part of your teaching team for distance learning as you do the Gummy Bear Dare from home. So in this video, I'm going to go over how to do the Gummy Bear Dare from home, materials for the lab, the anatomy of an engineering lab, how to do this actual Gummy Bear Dare lab, and then also some suggested extensions to this activity. So let's talk about the materials. I went to Walmart and got these items for, as you can see, about less than $15, including sales tax. Now, this is typically what you would get for a classroom. Because students are at home, they may have various different materials that they can use, and I would say encourage your student to use the different materials that they may have at home. Now, I know that there are some schools, in fact, my son's school district, the teachers will actually call on a weekly basis to touch base with the QPs, and one of those questions can also be, do you have the materials that you need in order to teach this challenge? And if not, what I suggest is being able to put some of these things in a plastic baggie and then dropping it off to the family or mailing it off to the family if that's possible. In any case, I'm going to go over some of the typical things that you would find in this challenge, but realize some of the joy that comes in doing these STEM challenges is that your students can be very creative about the kinds of materials that they use. In this case, so materials such as craft sticks, packs of pencils, rubber bands, gummy bears, a tape measure or something to measure with, and something to launch their gummy bears over, like binders, books, a student, a dog, a stuffed animal, a parent, right? They can be very creative about that. Now, other things to consider, like I said, a lot of these materials are optional, but you can also, at least when we did this in class, you can include a cardboard trifold. Instead of gummy bears, you can encourage students to use pencil topper erasers or Legos. And like I said before, you can include plastic spoons. One of the most creative ways of doing these catapults is that a teacher would buy one of those canvas paint barriers, and then they would take pom-poms, dip them in paint, and then have kids launch them at the canvas, and it becomes a work of art. So that's a great way of including STEAM, the art, into this project. Another thing I want to add is this great idea that I ran across on my Facebook wall, and that is the flat teacher doll. So one thing you can include in these challenges, or just in general to reinforce the connections that you have with your students, especially at a distance, is that you can go to an app like Bitmoji, or you can take a picture of yourself, print it, and then mail it to your students so they can cut it out and carry you wherever they go. So it's just another way to reestablish those connections even at a distance. And I've been looking all over the internet at the creative and really sweet ways that students have been including their flat teachers in the different activities that they do. So try it. I really encourage you to try it. So let's talk about the engineering structure for a bit. You're going to find multiple versions of the engineering design process, or EDP, all over the internet. For consistency, I'm going to use a simplified version that was introduced by Meredith Anderson from the Elementary STEMCon. And you can actually see her websites and go to her websites on this slide. She's excellent when it comes to these STEM challenges. Meredith did a presentation at STEMCon, and I really loved the elegance of her model. The hallmark of a good engineering lab is that students get to build, evaluate, and reflect, and then improve and rebuild the model again. Remember, deep learning comes from reflection, application, and creation. So just stopping at the first build is not getting at those higher learning and thinking skills. You really want to give students the opportunity and time to reflect, discuss, rebuild, improve, think more deeply about the creations that they make when it comes to this challenge. The other thing is, if you don't have your students improve on their models, then you're actually not doing engineering. So that's really important. In this case, almost all engineering projects start with defining a problem. Engineering is about applying science and the things that we know to solving real-world problems that we actually have. In this case, in the classroom, you're going to pose the driving question, and then you're going to define the parameters. Next, students need to think about and imagine the solution to the problem. Then, they would plan out the design. Afterward, students would actually make their solution and test their solution to see how well it solves the problem. Based on their test results, they would then discuss and research ways to enhance and improve their designs before rebuilding and improving upon them. You want at least 2 builds, if not more. Actual engineers may go through many builds before they can figure out a solution. Meredith had a great mnemonic for the engineering design process, which she called DIPME, which stands for define, imagine the solution, plan out the design, make and test the solution, and then enhance and improve upon it before rebuilding it again. Now, before I go on, I want to pause a moment. In the Elementary STEM conference that occurred in April, Marie Driscoll asked me this question. I am always uncertain how much information or help to front load my students with in STEM. Do we teach the science before they start, or do we let them discover it? I feel like there are a lot of different opinions, and this is true. There are a lot of different opinions. I myself am incredibly biased because I am a firm believer in the inquiry method, which means students discover the information. If students are front-loaded with information, it's really going to stifle their individual voices and their own creativity. STEM is best taught authentically, and authentic STEM is a process of discovery, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. That means creativity happens when you can inspire student imagination. And believe me, students are very creative. However, you must provide that space and time for students to think and struggle a bit, which is not something we're normally used to doing. But by giving them that time, space, and the expectation that they will and can come up with their own ideas, you're also giving them the confidence in their own abilities as well. I'll talk more about this when I start going over the activity itself. So let's talk about the lab. The driving question which presents the problem to your student is, how can you catapult a gummy bear over a barrier? Here's the suggested parameters. The catapult should launch a bear over 2 binders that are taped back to back. Like I said before, this is at home, so it doesn't have to be 2 binders. It could be, a sibling or a book or a chair, whatever it is that your student has. Part of the catapult must stay on the ground. This prevents the design from becoming a slingshot or anything else, okay? And I say here on the edge of a binder if it was in class, but that's not really a parameter, but I will show you exactly what I mean in a minute. And then another parameter that you would use in class is to limit the amount of materials that they may use. But since everybody is doing this at home, really the biggest parameter is just telling your kids, you can use anything that you have. Next, you want to give your students some time to think about and imagine the solution. You may start with the question, what are things that you need to know or would like to know about the product? Now remember, this is not the time to start looking at catapult designs for inspiration, because you want to have your student practice being creative and using their imagination. Now your students may not know what a catapult is, but rather than tell them, you can go ahead and explain the verb to catapult, which means to fling something over a wall or a barrier, right? I don't suggest sharing or looking up catapult designs for your student because it is going to affect your student's design, and you want them to think about this, to push their boundaries, and really try and imagine and test their own solution. Now, if you're not sure how to get your students started, there is a way that I suggest you can begin. So you want to help your students discuss what they want to make, okay? If you're not sure how to get your students started, here's a way to begin. Give your student a ball and have them throw it over a chair. Then ask, what are different ways you can imagine throwing it over the chair? Then have them notice what they're doing to throw the ball over. Like break down each and every step that they're doing. Notice in the breakdown, you're actually helping your student pay attention to procedures. And by having them communicate those step-by-step procedures to you, you are actually giving them really good practice with ELA standards of processes and science standards as well. You can ask them what makes the ball higher or further. You can even challenge them to think about different ways of getting the ball over the furniture, right? Once they kind of have that, once they've experimented with that, because, it starts with something easy, right? Throwing a ball over the chair is easy, but then you go, well, what else can I do to get the ball over the chair? Now you've got the next step, because now you're thinking about how is your student going to create a machine that's going to basically do the same thing that their arm is doing, right? Next, you want to introduce the parameters. Remember, the catapult has to touch the ground. So in this case, if the student has their elbow on the table as they throw the ball over the chair, what has to happen? Make sure you stick with those parameters. And just to illustrate what I mean by that, I had my son demonstrate this for you. As you can see, he's got the ball positioned on the table. He's going to throw it over the chair. Have your kid try this, either with or without the dog who's waiting for him to throw the ball. Have them observe what their arm is doing to get that ball over and ask, how do I get this ball up higher? How can I get this ball up further? What needs to happen? And then from there, move to, how can I build a machine that can do the same thing that my arm is doing to a gummy bear? As your student builds, this is a great time to see what your kids are making and thinking. Let your students test and retest. While they build, ask them questions to get them thinking about their builds. Why did you choose this design? Tell me how it works. Can you say more about this? What does this, as you point to one piece of the catapult, do? But don't ever offer opinions like, this is wrong. Don't direct them. This is really their idea. Let them discover through their own experimentation. That's the reason why you want to encourage your student to test and retest along the way. Now teachers, like I mentioned in the beginning, I want you to imagine that your QPs are substitute teachers who have no teaching experience. When you are writing this up for your lessons, write the instructions for your QPs like you would for a substitute teacher. To help you, I've included a sheet like this for QPs in the Gummy Bear Dare packet. Notice the big rule for QPs. They may not touch the materials. They may only ask questions to guide, but not direct. I've also included questions that they can ask as well. Now, when your students are testing the catapults, encourage them to measure how far. Encourage them to measure how high. Ask them how many different trials did they do. And also, they may notice that each trial is very different. even though they're using the same catapult. And there's various reasons for that, but you want to encourage your student to figure that out. Like, why would the gummy bear height or distance vary between each trial, even though they're using the same build? This may take several attempts, and you want to encourage your student to take a picture, draw a model, record a video. In the Gummy Bear Dare packet, both the QP packet and the teacher packet, you've got T-charts that you can use for your students to record the data. Now, students should be paying attention to their catapult test, so give them something to write on. You can download our T-chart to help with this. We have a T-chart for kindergarten and first grade, along with the T-chart for older kids too. I would also suggest collecting data as a class by putting everyone's measurements on a table. However, because this is distance learning, I highly suggest making this an option and not a requirement. There's still going to be some students that may not be comfortable sharing in a distance learning environment. They may not have the time or the support to be able to do that, and that's okay. To help your students focus, have them think about the following questions. What worked and why? What didn't work and why? And how can you make that design better? Now, I want to talk about failure. You want to prepare your QPs in advance for this because you want to remind them that while all solutions give us information, testing in engineering and science is about learning as much from our failures, which happen a lot, as much as our successes. If gummy bears don't make it over the binder, it isn't a failed experiment. In the words of famous mythbuster Adam Savage, there is really no such thing as a failed experiment. Failure is expected in STEM because that's how scientists and engineers learn, and it should not be frowned upon. The experiment was successful because you got data and information on their solution. It is the solution design that failed, and that's to be expected. It's better that our prototypes fail here as opposed to having real structures like bridges fail and kill us. This is another reason why you want kids to have at least 2 attempts on building their catapults. They learn that engineering is a process of continual improvement by testing their different solutions. And it also gets them to really think critically about their designs. In the Gummy Bear Guide, I've provided some excellent resources on how to help your child persist and what to do if your child shuts down or gets frustrated. Now, at this point, your child may be thirsting for more ideas and knowledge. Ask them questions like, where can you go for more information? Help them look for YouTube videos, check out your local library's website, or Google Mythbusters catapults for ideas. Ask them what worked well, and then also ask what can be done better. Where can you go to find out more information? If students aren't used to this sort of questioning technique, they may respond to a question of what worked and why with, I don't know. Children are trained to say, I don't know, because it prompts the adult to tell them the answer or to tell them what to do. When they're told the answer directly, students stop thinking critically, and they stop searching for the answer. The response of, I don't know, makes it difficult for you as a teacher to know what's going on in your student's mind. Rather than answering the student directly, ask questions and give them cues to help them figure out the answer for themselves. Give them prompts that help them break down the problem and examine the pieces more closely. Prompts like, tell me what you saw, or describe what happened are ways to get students to look more closely. Oftentimes, it's one word, one misconception, or one barrier that confuses them. Asking a question like, what are you confused about, teaches them to develop the awareness of their own thinking processes. How did you get the bear over the barrier? When they use the catapult, gets them thinking about the individual steps that they took to make the bear go over. This brings me to one of my favorite teaching techniques called wait time. Try to elicit the information from your students rather than being the giver of information. If your student doesn't have the answer right away, give them time to think on it, as much time as they need. Remember that it takes a lot of time to learn something new. You can give your student that time, while also providing the expectation that your student will come up with the answers. They just need some time to process it. Maybe they need a little bit of guidance or prompts from you, but trust them in this process. Now, after your student has collected data, and perhaps when your students have discussed as a class, it's now time to have your students redesign their catapults. As students retest, it may be good to tell your students that the results of their second run may be better or worse than their first. Testing is a way for your students to learn more about how their catapult works and what factors change to make their bear go higher or further. Similarly, these results are due to a variety of factors. Again, use this opportunity to help your students think about what these factors may be and how they affect their outcomes. If your students are willing, collect data on a table as a whole class. Together as a class, lead your students through the discussion of the data. Questions to think about would be, did the overall distance that the bear traveled improve on the second run? What factors affected how high and how far the bears? What designs seemed to be most effective and why? What other experiments would they like to try? Finally, have your students brainstorm on what other experiments they would like to design for the catapult, or other experiments that this catapult challenge encouraged them to do. Now, in terms of extensions, you can do several things if your students are comfortable with it. For example, you can challenge your students to catapult their bears over higher and higher barriers. You can also extend this lab into language arts by having your student do presentations, or by having your students write stories or draw stories about their bear and how it found itself in a situation where it needed to be catapulted over a barrier. For math, there's opportunities for students to practice measurement, addition, averages, and tables. And then finally, you can have your students challenge their QPs to see if they can create catapults as a family. I hope you enjoyed the home version of this catapult lab. Thank you so much for watching. If you really like this video, be sure that you subscribe to this channel because I am adding to it every week. Stay tuned, be safe out there, be healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye now.